Joining me today on GHC Coffee Break is a great friend, Donna Mantooth, who was a former faculty member at Georgia Highlands. Get your coffee and we'll be right back.
Hi, may I please have an application? Thank you.
Skip the drama. Get your diploma.
Okay.
Take that first step towards a better future. Find free adult education classes at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome to GHC Coffee Break. I'm very excited today to have a friend and a former colleague, but she'll always be my colleague and she'll always be my friend, Donna Mantooth, who was a psychology professor at Georgia Highlands College for how long, Donna?
16 years total.
16, oh, just 16 years. Donna has, she lived across the hall from me at our cul-de-sac at our offices in Georgia Highlands. And Donna, one of the things that we really like to look at is this idea of positivism and positive attitudes and make people more aware of how important it is in our lives. And I know some of your research dealt with resiliency and positive psychology, so I thought who better than a wonderful friend and colleague to come and talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. And yes, I am very, very much a proponent of things that relate to positive psychology. And one of the things that I really believe is important is that we're happy in our lives. And Martin Seligman, who is the founder of the one of the founders of the modern positive psychology movement, wrote a book called Authentic Happiness. And it's based on things that you can do to make yourself happier that are based on research that you can actually do, put into practice on a daily basis. And a lot of it rests on the foundation of the positive psychology movement, the modern movement.
Why do you think this is so important to talk about?
Well, for one thing, if you look around us in the world today, we don't see very much positive stuff. And the news has all the negative media and all the bad things that are happening. And it's a rarity for us to get, especially on a national news program, a positive spin on anything. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we know from research that the surroundings, the environment that we are in some ways dictates our own attitude and our own behavior. You can, check that out for yourself. I just recently had an experience that I'd like to share. Is a friend of mine and I were having lunch somewhere, and this is one of my best friends, but she's also a negative Nelly a little bit and a worrier. And we were served by this young lady who was just bubbly. She was just so happy, and she said, I'm not going to be upset about anything today because everything's great. I'm having a wonderful day. And so my friend asked her, she said, well, why are you having such a wonderful day? And so they talked a little bit, and she told her. And we went on through our lunch, and she came back several times to our table, and she was always very bright and bubbly and positive. And in a few minutes, my friend told her, she said, being around you has really made me happier. And I thought, wow, that's anecdotal evidence, but it proves that your environment does influence your behavior.
Oh, absolutely. My dad said that he I think he was a psychologist at heart. He was a blue collar worker, but I think he had a psychological mind, because he said sometimes he would just kind of, people that he worked with, he would feel like had bad attitudes or different things were going on, and he said, he kind of did an experiment. One morning he walked in to work and he was all sourpuss and everybody around him just seemed to get drugged down. And the next morning he walked in and he was all, like you said, bubbly and hyper and up. Oh, this is great. We're going to have a great day today, da da da. And he said it was like the people around him were much more cheerful. And he said, from his perspective, is that when you are around somebody that's just, I think of Dopey and Droopy and Eeyore and all those cartoon characters, but it is really true that if you walk around so sad all day. You bring people down. But if you're around somebody, if you're feeling down and I'm around somebody that's up, I immediately feel myself coming up to where their level is. Maybe not quite as enthusiastic, depending, but I definitely feel better. I'll never forget, I worked at a park, and one day I thought, I really just don't want to be here today. And as I walked through the employee area, this guy bounced through, coming back for his break. I was going back to work, and he was coming out, and he just said, "Smile, Jesus loves you." Well, that was all it took, and I was like, you know what? I can smile. I can be happy. And I did, and I felt better, and I had a great day at work. And I think that that's the kind of things, to say good morning, how are you, can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's been proven through research is things like gratitude and optimism and caring and kindness. Not only does it make other people feel good, but it makes us feel good ourselves, that we've contributed something to somebody else's happiness or uplifting or whatever you want to call it. But it's really fascinating to me because I stay in touch with some of my former students, and one of the things I would tell them is, everybody always calls me Pollyanna and Mary Poppins because I'm typically smiling and laughing and telling something funny, or just being positive. And I would tell them, I am not necessarily like this every single day. Right. I have my ups and downs, and I have my days when sadness comes in and hurt comes in. And I said, but when I do that, I literally get my up in the morning and say, you're not going to do this. I'm going to kick myself in the rear, and I'm going to have a good day no matter how bad I may feel, or no matter how down I may feel. I'm not going to let that get to me. I'm not going to let it make my day be ruined. And I tell my students, you have two choices when you wake up in the morning. You have a choice to be happy that day, or you have a choice to be miserable that day. And you can make those choices come true, whichever one you choose. Mm-hmm. And we kind of experimented with that. And I had a student email me the other day and say, I just wanted you to know that I didn't really want to get up and go to work this morning, but I remembered your story. And he said, I made myself get up and go, and after that it was okay. I had a good day. And so, those are the kind of reinforcements that you get that prove that happiness is a choice. And not that I'm pie in the sky, or that I'm so naive that I don't know that bad things happen, and I don't know that there's sadness and sorrow in the world. But on the flip side of that, every single one of us can find something that we are blessed about. Whether it's the fact that we can get up every morning when other people might not can, we can walk about, just little things that are very, very important. I used to have my students do a gratitude journal, and every day they had to write 5 different things that day they were grateful for. And it had to be something, they had to do it for a whole week, and it had to be 5 different things every day. It couldn't be the same thing. Okay. And in the beginning they would say, I can't think of that much. It won't. And by the end of the week, they were coming up with more than 5 things every day because their focus had changed. Their focus had changed to the things that they were grateful for instead of the things that they were bothered by or that were disappointing to them. And they stopped looking for the negative and started looking for the positive. And that's the difference between an optimist and a pessimist, is that you're looking for the positive as opposed to looking for the negative. And it's something within your control. Like I said, there are going to be days that you just say, it's not going to work today. And that's okay, because we all have those times. But to me, that just makes the days when everything is positive and upbeat more precious. And so, I think that it's just so important for us to realize we're in control. We can't control a whole lot of things in our life, the things that are external to us, but we can control our internal responses and reactions and our happiness.
Yeah, I think my mom, I call her, our family kind of lovingly now calls her a hobbit. If anybody know the Lord of the Rings, a hobbit, this naive, pure of heart, good hobbit. She doesn't have hairy feet, but but she is a hobbit. She sees the good in everybody. Unless if somebody messes with her kids or her family, then the mama bear comes out. But in general, she really does have such a naive outlook on being positive will change everything. which I agree with. But it's sometimes as the child, it's like, I know I don't feel positive. Don't tell me I need to feel positive about this. You know, that anger, sometimes it almost made me angry or more angry, for her to say, well, yes, but Susan, you know, you got to be positive, and this isn't, think positive. And I'm like, no, I hurt. Yeah, there's nothing positive about the pain, okay? But she's right. The days that I wake up, I've been having problems with some tendons in both feet and tendonitis, and I try to go, the days that this is going to be a bad day, I tend to have a bad day. They hurt more, or at least in my mind, they hurt more. The days that I wake up and go, okay, you know, it sucks, it hurts. I'm going to hurt if I'm going to walk. I'm going to hurt if I'm going to sit. Well, I'm going to walk. I'm going to do what I need to do. It doesn't matter. I seem to have better days. So, you know, for me, it is a struggle at times when chronic pain, and we've seen a lot in research and on the news lately about the impact chronic pain has on us and on our bodies, and how hard it is to be positive when you feel like every morning you wake up you hurt.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, and that's one of the reasons why I think this research on positive psychology and authentic happiness is so important, because it shows us that even in spite of the difficulties in our lives, the pain, even chronic pain, that we still have some control over how we respond to that. Sometimes it can be through exercise, sometimes it can be through medication or help with it. Other times it can be through just infusing ourselves or in placing ourselves into a more positive environment, so that we just kind of get that uplifting we were talking about before. When you're around those people that are positive and have an upbeat attitude, it just naturally flows over to you. And the same thing vice versa. When you're in a bad mood, you want to avoid other people that have, you know, bad attitudes, because it just brings you and drags you down. And I think that's important, because I think we can't do away with the bad things in the world. We can't do away with the chronic pain. We can't do away with evil, but we can control the way that we respond to it. You know, this is just an interesting segue a little bit, but I watch CBS Nightly News sometimes, and one of the things I'm very impressed with is that every evening they end that show with some kind of positive story about something that somebody is doing positively. They had a story about a little boy who was only 6 years old and had lost both of his parents within a few months of each other. And you know, he could have just shut down and just felt like his whole world had crashed. But instead, he said to make him feel better, he wanted to make other people feel better. So he went out with his aunt and bought some little small trinket type things, packs of gum, different things like that, and just walked around in public places and gave them away. Wow. And told them why he was giving them away. He said, you just kind of didn't look like you were having a great day. I wanted to see if I could make it better. Oh. And you know, I cried, you know, when I heard that story, because I thought, you know what, this is news. This is the kind of news, and I love the fact that they end their news program on that, because that leaves you, after all the wars and drama and bombs and, you know, terrorism and all that kind of stuff, then you've got this little kid, 6 years old, who is making a difference. It showed him talking to people and how they would give him a hug and, you know, thank him for just noticing, just caring. And it was amazing to me, and he wants to keep doing it. He has a goal for like 30,000 people to touch, you know, and it's like, wow, 6 years old, what a goal.
Out of the mouths of babes.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, I think when I look at children, there's a book called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Mm-hmm. We learned the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them to do unto you, growing up in kindergarten. So I think that the children are a great example. However, we're not always the great example for our children. Right. So if we would kind of go back to remembering, what did you learn in kindergarten? What a difference that would make. We have to take a break, Miss Donna, but get your coffee and we'll be right back.
I'm transferring to the University of West Georgia.
Columbia University.
Kennesaw State,
UGA,
Loyola University in Chicago,
Grambling State.
Shorter University.
I'm going to Greensboro College, and we all got our start at Georgia Highlands.
No matter where your educational journey takes you, you can get your start at Georgia Highlands College. Georgia Highlands College. Enroll, engage, excel.
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. Hope you had your chance to get your coffee. Joining me is Donna Mantooth, a good friend and colleague from Georgia Highlands College. She worked at Georgia Highlands for 16 years. I think it was like 10 years part-time and 6 years full-time, or vice versa. 6 years part-time and 10 years full-time. But it was really great for her being there because our offices were right across the hall. And Donna, I can remember mornings when I would come in, and vice versa. I think we did it for each other. But we would come into the office and either had a good day or a bad day, but we were always able to help each other make it better.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And I think that, being good friends, we could kind of sense each other's mood, I guess. And I know there were some of the things that you had gone through in your past and some of the losses that you had had. And I understood that, but I also knew that it was so important for you to have somebody that was there to listen, but also to kind of say, okay, now, here we go. We're going to, this too shall pass, and we're going to move on past this and, move on with our lives, because that's the way life works, regardless of what's happened in our past. As long as we're living, the world keeps turning. We're going to keep living and doing the things that we need to do, and we can either do it well or poorly. And I've recently been working with a family, a daughter and a father, who lost their mother a year ago, and in counseling. And I know grief is. I've been through that with myself, losing both of my parents. And so I know the grief is horrendous. But I've just really, truly enjoyed this year of watching them sort of come to grips with that, come to grips with the grief, and determine that tomorrow's going to be better than today. The next day's going to be better than tomorrow, and then so forth and so on. And I've really watched both of them come from being very depressed and very lost to beginning to slowly enjoy their lives again and get back to a more positive attitude. And we've talked about that a lot. We've talked about how that feels, and don't get me wrong, they still have their days, their ups and down days, their crying days, but we all have those, whether we've had a significant loss like that or not. And we have to make choices. How are we going to progress tomorrow, the next day, and the next day? It's a choice.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because in my death, dying, and grieving class, I do talk about the deaths in my family. My son died stillborn in 1983. My father-in-law died August of 1999. My daddy died in September 1999, and then my precious daughter died in November of 99. Really, some really heavy-hitting stuff.
Absolutely.
Especially my son, and then again in 99 with my daughter, and she'd had to have a transplant. But when I go back and look of those times, and you're right, there's days I can talk about her and I can talk about what's happened in my life, and I am absolutely okay. And there's days I'm not. But you did hit the nail on the head. I made a choice. I could wallow, and sometimes I let my days have. I think we need wallowing days too to be positive the next day. And I let myself have those wallowing days. Only let myself have that one. If it comes day number 2, I'm going, okay, no, can't do this. But to have that positive attitude and make a choice in the morning. I can be sad today, and it stinks. I mean, I miss Felicia so bad, and it stinks. But I choose to be a better person and do better and help other people because she died.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things I've seen in this whole positive psychology movement is not just being self-focused, even though that's important because you have to get yourself in a place where you need to be, but also if you're reaching out to help others, if you're showing gratitude, if you're showing kindness, it just uplifts you. There's no way it cannot. And I think that when we take ourselves outside of our own limited little scope and start to think about all the others in the world, you can look just a few feet from you and find someone who is in much worse shape than you are. I used to have a student, and I used to tell my classes about this young man all the time because he so impressed me. He had cerebral palsy. He could not walk very well. He had a little walker that he had to walk with. He did not talk well. Very difficult to understand him. And I found out through my class when he wrote his life story that he had had a twin brother who died at birth. So he'd had lots of traumatic things and an ongoing disability in his life. I never saw that young man without a smile on his face, never. In all the several years that he was in my classes and at school, never saw him without a smile on his face. He didn't ask anybody to help him beyond what he had to. He did not feel sorry for himself. He was grateful to be alive. He went with us on a trip to Alabama Shakespeare Festival on a bus. Did not ask for anybody to give him special accommodations, wait for him. He just plowed along with that smile on his face. And I used to tell my students, I said, if that young man can constantly have a smile on his face with what he's gone through and what he goes through every day and what he will go through the rest of his life, there is no reason for you or I to be frowning and sad. I told him, I said, it just doesn't take you long just to look around you and find someone that's in worse shape than you are and look at their attitudes. 9 times out of 10, or maybe not 9 times out of 10, but maybe 7 out of 10, even people who have difficulties find a way to cope with them and move on and do what they need to do and be satisfied and happy with where they are. We always want to do better. We always want to have our life be maybe a little different or a little better. But sometimes you got to be just satisfied where you are because there's some things you cannot change. Like this young man could not change his disability. So he just decided, I'm going to do the best I can with it. And I'm not going to let it make other people feel sorry for me. I mean, he was one of those people that just brought sunshine into the room. Mm-hmm. And it was very important for me to express that to students and to everybody that I meet with about we choose. It's a choice to whether we're going to let life define us or we're going to define our life.
And I know I'm going to mess this up, but there's a story I've heard over the years, and I'm sure you know it, about 2 wolves inside, and they're fighting, and one's kind of the good wolf and the other's the bad wolf, and they fight and fight. And the question comes up, well, which one's going to win? And it's the one that you feed.
Absolutely. And that's true, absolutely true for us as humans and as individuals, is if we feed the negativity and the pessimism, that's what we're going to have. Mm-hmm. If we feed the optimism, the positivity, the happiness, that's what we're going to have. And I just think that's, like you said, I'm not saying you'll never have a bad day.
Yeah, no.
Nobody would say that.
I wish that was true,
But
no.
If somebody did have absolutely no problems, then I would think there was a little bit something wrong with them, that they didn't realize that there was a real world out there. People used to accuse me of that a lot of times. They said, you're just Pollyanna-ish. And I said, I don't think I'm really so Pollyanna-ish, but that's what helps me to be a positive person, and that's what helps me to get through. So be it,
Exactly. You are who you are, and who you are is a wonderful, lovely woman.
Well, thank you.
I think about what you just said, to have this cup is empty. It's not half full, it's not half empty. It truly is empty. Sometimes that's the reality of it. And what we have to do is figure out how to fill that cup with positive so that when it gets full and there's that last drop of negativity and it overflows, we got to learn how to fill our cup with positive, empty our cup, and refill it with continued positive in order to make it through the day sometimes.
Absolutely. And sometimes it means you've got to seek out somebody that will listen to you and hear you and let you go through whatever you need to go through. And then once you've gotten your pity party, I guess you might say, then they can say, hey, okay, I agree. It sucks. It's not a good day, not a good event or whatever. But what can you do to make it different?
Yeah.
What can you do to make it better? Can you do anything? If you can't, walk away. walk away from negative people, walk away from negative events. You know, if you can't change them, if you can't help by being a positive influence, then walk away. Don't let them drag you down. And that's hard to do sometimes, because sometimes the negativity is people we care and love about.
Yeah.
Care about and love, I'm sorry. And so we really have to decide, is it worth it? Is it worth it to keep trying to help this person, to try to be a positive influence on this person? Or is it going to bring me down so much that I just need to let it go? I need to walk away from it. And I think we have to decide that in our lives, what things we can keep and what things what we need to let go for our own well-being.
I think that's a really good point. And when that's one of the things I do when I have those bad days, or if sometimes it's a song, sometimes it's something, and sometimes there's somebody there, and sometimes there's just me by myself. I drive 45 minutes each way to work, which can be good, and sometimes it can be really bad, because then I can get my pity party because I'm all by myself with nobody to talk to, you know. But when I'm with somebody and maybe a song comes on or I cry, I like to look at them and say, you know what, I'm okay. Because my mother, oh my gosh, she worries. Are you okay? Yes, Mother, I'm fine. But I need to express it. I need to let myself cry. And so I can't take credit for this. Somebody actually told me they did this. So I said, I'm stealing that idea. Y'all can steal it, borrow it, whatever you want to do. But what I do is when I have those moments, I acknowledge it, having a moment. But I'm okay, I do this sometimes. And that makes me feel better, because I'm able to express it, put it back, and let you know at the same time, because I don't want you worrying about me, that I'm okay.
True, and that's absolutely true. And that's really an intelligent way to approach it. It's not realistic to think that you will never have sorrow, that you will never have difficulties in your life. That's the real world that we live in. But I still say that coping with it, and coping is a big part of positive psychology as well. How well do you cope? What coping mechanisms do you use? Do you know yourself well enough to know that I need this time to cry, and then I'll move on past that and I'll be okay? Or are you one of those people who would just fall completely apart if they started and they can't do that? And so you have to know your own self. You have to know what works for you. You have to reach out. It's so important to reach out to other people when you're hurting, I think. And it's so hard for us to do that, because we don't want people to see that hurt, or we don't want them to be saying, are you okay? Or what's wrong with you? What can I do? And you find those people that will just be quiet with you sometimes.
Oh, that's good.
And just not even necessarily listen, just be there. Just be quiet with you, or cry with you sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you walk away, you move on, you go on to other things. So coping is huge. And one of the things in positive psychology that I love is they're teaching children at a very young age great coping skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's a powerful tool for them to take into their future.
And you see my cup. That means, guys, go get your last cup of coffee. We'll be right back.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Thank you for joining us on GHC Coffee Break today. Donna, as we go out, I want you to start throwing out great coping skills or coping mechanisms to help other people, our audience, cope with stress.
Okay, one of the things you can do to cope is to just deal with it, face it, okay? If you can't fix it, walk away from it. That's another coping mechanism. Another coping mechanism is to reach out to somebody who you know can help you. Another coping mechanism is to give yourself a pep talk every morning. I'm going to be happy today. This is going to be a good day. Another coping mechanism is to realize that this too shall pass.
Hopefully you got something out of today's talk. We'll see you next time on GHC Coffee Break.